junior tournaments.
Yeah.
And had to struggle like pretty much everyone else who goes to D1 school. Had to struggle with the choice of going pro or going to college, and eventually I chose college. And now I'm trying to do the best that I can for my team. We're at Cornell. I'm at Cornell University. So.
Yeah. How does that work? Like playing college and deciding between college and pro? Because I know a lot of guys in college, they still can play on like the ATP tour or Challenger tour here and there. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I took the last semester off to play professionally. Okay. And I played a lot of challengers, a lot of futures, even some ATP tournaments. And you can do that as long as you don't accept prize money over 15,000. So that's where because something about expenses or something like that. It's just because they know that it costs a lot for the flights and hotels and stuff for the tournament. So they'll allow you to collect the prize money up to 15,000. If you make over 15,000, then you have to give it back.
And that's 15,000 per tournament, right? Not for the whole year?
Per year.
Per year. Wow.
Yeah, for the whole year. Yeah.
So you can probably, depending on the tournaments you enter and how far you go, you can probably hit that 15,000 fairly quickly. So.
Oh yeah, big time.
So I guess really it's just more so the experience of playing on the pro tour is what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah. It's like in case obviously if you do really well and you continue to do well, then you might want to just like leave college and play on the pro circuit full time. But yeah, it's also to give yourself, I guess, a leg up in some ways. If I want to stay 4 years and I want to graduate, it's better to graduate having an ATP ranking of 500 than having no ATP ranking and having to work your way up after graduating.
Yeah, and I got to imagine that Cornell, given that it's an Ivy League school, you're probably a little bit more, pointing towards the direction of staying the 4 years and graduating. Am I correct there?
Yeah, I mean, Ivy League diploma is obviously a very coveted thing. So
right.
Definitely a lot of incentive for me to stay. Between
going to an Ivy League school and playing, tennis, how do you have time to sleep?
I set times for myself where, I need to be asleep. Like usually I'll try to get to sleep before 11 o'clock every night and wake up around 8. So that way I get 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
If I can't do that, it has to be a good reason. It really does. Like I will not, I won't give up my sleep for pretty much anything. And I try to, if I have like a really tough project due or something like that, then I'll try to fit that in around my actual day, like during the actual day instead of, sacrificing time at night, because I think that's like when you start making, concessions and you start, compromising, then if it gets to a point where you don't care very quickly. So that's why I have to just kind of keep it, very, very straight.
Yeah. And I got to imagine that's kind of one thing I guess I've learned about sleep kind of through my athletic career and just even growing up in general is it's not only important physically for your body, but mentally as well. I mean, when I get a good night's sleep, it's just the concentration levels the next day is just, through the roof compared to a day when, maybe I'll be up gaming, which is a stupid example to stay up late, but it happens, I think, to all of us to a certain extent, but
no,
just,
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Freshman year, that was me. Like I would stay up, I would stay up and play video games or watch Netflix or stuff a lot of the time. And the reason why it became very normalized was because, when the first kind of set of exams and stuff come around, you're staying up late a lot to study. And then, your biological clock kind of, gets used to that.
Right.
So at 11 o'clock, you don't feel tired,
right.
And you're I guess I can just watch an episode of Netflix and then go to bed, and it turns into a habit. So.
Was there a point in time or what was the point in time where it kind of clicked in your head that you had to kind of change things up about your sleep?
I ran out of Netflix shows.
So not by choice, by default, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I also, when I started traveling on the tour, I was around a lot of really, good players that have been, at the highest level a lot of the time. And they were telling me that discipline is one of the biggest things that separates the journeymen from the actual, professionals, is that they take it like as their job,
Right.
And they were telling me something about like basically to the extent of like passion is all very well and good, but that's not what's going to win you matches and win you tournaments. What's going to win you matches and win you tournaments is doing your job and doing your job well. And part of doing your job is making sure you get the right amount of sleep at night. You can't compromise that. So, and I honestly, I noticed for myself, like I won a 25K a couple of years back, and I was looking through my my Fitbit statistics, and that week I had the most sleep, like on average per night, that I had like any week in that year. That was the most by far.
Right.
You know, so
yeah, I get addicted to like Fitbits and Apple Watches and stuff and how it tracks your sleep. And even I wear it when I play tennis, and it'll track like my movements and racket head speed and everything. I just get so addicted to technology. And I think maybe to a certain extent too addicted, but there's pros and cons to everything, I guess, right? And you got to find that optimal level of, I guess, engagement.
Definitely.
And I know you guys at Cornell, you had a pretty big, I think it was this past weekend, was it, where you guys won the indoor championship?
Yeah. You know, it's just honestly one of the best weekends that I've had in a long time. We came in and we just fought like every single player, every single spot. We just fought for every match that weekend. And, you know, we beat a lot of really good teams. I mean, we beat Harvard, who's 14 in the country now. We beat Dartmouth, who's 20 in the country. We're 16 in the country now. You know, I mean, so we definitely, I think we stepped up really well.
How did the pressure compare in playing in that tournament compared to a regular college regular season match?
I mean, for me personally, it was actually less pressure because I knew there was a set number of matches that I was going to play. And again, I kind of fully subscribed to the whole, like, just do your job, go out there and do your job and do your job well. And I actually lost. I lost against the number 2 from Dartmouth. His name's Dan Martin. And I don't know, hats off to him. Like, he played amazing tennis. I did a really good job, and he just played better than me that day. And I was fine with that. We ended up winning overall. So, you know. Yeah. But yeah, it was just like, you know, in that situation, I trust my teammates as well. So even if I'm playing a normal college match, I know how hard we've trained. I know how well they're playing. And, you know, I know that they're going to try and do their jobs the best they can. So even if we lose, you know, we can honestly say that we gave it our best shot. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah. And what you kind of, you know, what kind of sparked my mind when you said that I tell a lot of athletes that I consult with is being process versus outcome focused. So when you're outcome focused, you're only caring about wins and losses and maybe how many points you scored. That's when, you know, things can go either really, really well or really, really, you know, badly, depending on how you do. You start judging yourself a lot more. Whereas if you're kind of being more process focused, where you just kind of look at the little things you did right during the play, kind of gives you a better mindset, you know, for games going forward on, you know, how to judge yourself as a tennis player. Because like you said, you could be, you know, on your game a day, but the other guy could be on his game too. And it just comes down to 2 really good tennis players, and somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. Exactly.
And, you know, and the thing is a lot of tennis, because, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. You know, 90% of tennis players are divas. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of cases we have to be, you know, because it's such an individual sport, but that carries over a lot, especially in the lower levels of competition, like, you know, like college tennis or futures, or even like some of the smaller challengers. You'll see guys that are so focused on themselves that they fail to recognize that even if they play, like, they could play their best tennis and still lose on any given day, you know? And for some of them, it's very, very difficult. I know for me, it was very difficult to process that for a long time. Like when I first got to Cornell, you know, I was number 2 recruit in the country, and I got to Cornell and I started losing matches, and I was, you know, very confused, you know, and angry and frustrated because I didn't realize that, you know, you can be very, very good and play very good and still lose to somebody, you know, just because they played better than you that day. And you have to, you know, admit that, like, they were better than you that day. A lot of people can't do that. So.
Yeah. For you, how did you kind of get past that mental hurdle in yourself? Was it more so just kind of exposing yourself to those different situations, like just losing keep losing until it just becomes, quote unquote natural, or, not as much of a shock, I guess?
Well, no, I mean, definitely, definitely not. I would say that it was more of a gradual self teaching, because I played last season. I played a lot of matches where I was not playing my best tennis and I lost.
Mm-hmm.
And, understandably, I was, upset about the way that I'd handled myself. And I was just basically like, I didn't do my job well. Mm-hmm. And so I got burned for it. But there were also, like, especially towards the end of the season, there were matches where I started playing a lot better. And I was playing really high quality matches against high quality opponents and winning, And I remember there was the first one that I lost where I played well was, I think it was against a guy called Constant de la Bassetiere. He used to go to Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
I lost to him like 7-5 in the third. Amazing match. He played better than me that day, and that was the first time where I was really like, we lost overall. We lost 4-3. But I was like, look, I went out there. There was nothing more that I could have done. I did everything that I could, and that's good enough for me.
How quickly are having these conversations to yourself after a match? You're kind of like self-reflecting on how you did and ways you can improve, or things you can keep doing. Is it happening right after the match, or do you try and take some time off after each match and kind of just relax and then pick up training, in the next day, for example?
Yeah, definitely try to take a bit of time off mm-hmm. between, just the immediate end of the match and starting to think about, what could I have done better? What could I have done wrong? There are some cases where that's okay, but like I would say for the majority of the time, I just I leave my emotions on the court. I try to, and just be like, look, I just played a really emotionally and physically taxing match. Because that's what most matches are going to be when you're playing people that are, very near your level. And you need some time away from that. You can't immediately just go into construction mode. You just finished a competition. You need some time away. You need to kind of refresh your brain, because there's going to be things that you miss. Like you're gonna think about the match. Sorry, one sec. You're gonna think about the match more from an emotional standpoint than you are from an analytical standpoint. And so that just makes things difficult for you to find the actual reasons. You're going to say, it's because I served bad, or, I missed this shot or that shot. When in reality, if maybe you analyze it the next day and you say, maybe I just wasn't tossing the ball to the right position, or maybe I was serving to the wrong place. And I was, going into a strength of his, and that's why he was burning me,
Yeah, I know. In addition to tennis, you're also in tennis and school, of course. You started picking up the piano there at Cornell. I saw a couple of your videos on Instagram. Does that help you at all? How does that translate, I guess, to the tennis court? If it does at all.
100% does. 100% does. I started playing piano when I got here because I noticed that there were so many pianos that people just were not using. So I decided, I tried playing it for the first time. I was horrendous, of course. And, but I was like, wow, this sounds really, like it could have the potential to be really beautiful. And, I taught myself, a couple of classical songs like, Beethoven, Fifth Symphony, Ninth Symphony, Moonlight Sonata, Ode to Joy, Clair de Lune, from Debussy. Like I kind of went through, and as I started playing more and more, and, the completed product is so, there's something indescribable about it. It's beautiful. And it's like, I'm making this beautiful music. And I don't know, it's very relaxing. It's very therapeutic, in my opinion. And it helps me be a lot calmer on the court, because, I honestly, I can't tell you the scientific know-how why, but it just, It feels, it feels like right, for me. And it may not even be music for everybody else. Like, it's just, everybody has their thing that helps them, relax and takes away from the stress on the court. Just playing the piano is just my thing.
Yeah. No, I don't play as much anymore, but maybe from about 12 to about 25. So about till about last year, I played the guitar a lot, and that, kind of had the same function with the guitar that you kind of have with the piano. It kind of helps me relax, kind of brings me into another zone, lets my mind focus on that. And I found that, just having my mind focus on the guitar, it allowed my mind to be sharper when I was playing sports. For some reason, I was able to kind of focus better. And I think just doing, the things that come with music, you're remembering the different chords or keys you got to play, and the hand-eye coordination, everything like that. It trains your mind to work in a certain way, where then when you go onto the court, I think you just have that much of a mental advantage that you didn't have prior.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I mean, if you ask, like, if you go to the USTA Center in Orlando right now and ask every athlete there, do they play an instrument? I can almost guarantee that over 50% of them are going to say yes. So
yeah,
I don't think that's a coincidence, but.
And it's funny because I think it's really important. I think two really important things that come up with that. The first one we'll talk about first a bit is, you picked up piano later on in life, probably around 19 or 20 years old you were when you picked it up.
Yeah, 18, 19, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good lesson for people to understand, that you don't let age kind of get in the way of when you're going to start an activity. I only started playing tennis last year when I was 25. And I kind of, before I started playing, I would Google, like, is it too late to start playing tennis when you're 25 and stuff like that, right? It really got into my head. Like, what's the point of me playing tennis if I can't go if I can't be as competitive as I want to be? But I think, people tend to underestimate how well they can do with certain things based on their age. And the best advice I can give to people is just kind of go for it and see what happens. You have nothing to lose, really.
100%. Yeah. Couldn't agree more. That applies to pretty much everything in life, honestly.
I know for tennis, tennis is one of those interesting sports. At least I find it where when I'm in a tennis match, I'm either getting really, really, aroused. My arousal level is really, really high, where I'm getting like too hyper. I'm moving around the court too much. I'm just too excited. And then there's the other part where sometimes I feel like, to balance that, I try to, relax myself, but I get too relaxed. I end up losing my focus. And sometimes I kind of find it hard to get that middle ground where I'm both relaxed and focused at the same time. What are some of the kind of mental techniques that you find yourself doing in the court to kind of get that optimal level of arousal?
So for me, it's more of a seesaw kind of motion where you're trying to, like, have the dips be not too low. And for the methods that I use is, like, if I feel like I'm too passive, like, for example, I played a match against a guy from, I think it was Brown, and I was down a double break. I was down 3-0 with the other guy serving within like 5 minutes because I was like dead on the court. And I decided, all right, I need to get my feet moving, maybe say like, come on, or, something like that after you win a point, to kind of get your blood up and start competing. Or if you feel like you're too, excited, then that would be a great time to slow things down and start breathing. You see, like, Nadal, when he's facing break points, look at how much time he takes between the points. It's insane.
Yeah, you sometimes you'll see, like, I saw the clip of, I think it was Kyrgios, where he was like, mocking him in a funny way. I'm sure he didn't mean any ill harm by it, but like, he was mocking him of how much time he takes in between the set or the points. I
mean, the thing is, morality aside, that's a really great strategy for, number one, icing your opponent, and number two, getting yourself into an ideal frame of mind to compete. Because that way you can analyze. It's all about self-observation in terms of keeping yourself at a level, at an even level of excitedness. It's like, look, I can tell if I'm screaming come on every single point, and like every time I miss the ball, I'm like, oh man, and complaining and stuff, that means I'm too excited. I need to slow down. I need to take some deep breaths, calm down, and understand that I just need to do my job. Or, if I'm walking around and I feel like I'm just sluggish, I'm not moving well, then I need to start moving my feet. I need to start saying, come on, more. It's just, it's a matter of self-diagnosis, really.
Yeah, I got to imagine that that's got to come, with a bit of for some people, you can't have a big ego and have that done successfully. You kind of have to be able to admit when things aren't going right and things are going wrong, and be able, like you said, self-diagnose yourself. I think that's such a critical part of not only tennis, but athletics in general, is in the moment, having the awareness to tell yourself if you're acting a certain way that's not optimal, and just come up with the best solution possible to get yourself back to the optimal arousal level, so to say.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. And I know, I saw a video that you described yourself as the quote unquote class clown of the team, at least in the classroom, or at least, but I guess also in the tennis team. How much does that kind of play a role in your mentality as a tennis player?
Well, that's one that I would say that's actually something that's very separate from my on-court persona. Because I used to be, actually, you know what? And not really, because the way that I used to be was that, I'm like a dad. Like I make dad jokes all the time. It's bad. Like, yeah, at this point, I think my entire team just despises my jokes. So, but I mean, it's funny to me, so it's okay. But, no, but back in the day, I would try to, that personality would come out a lot on the court as well in matches. Which, I mean, you've probably seen a couple of my videos on Instagram and stuff, which it translates to a lot of amazing points. Like I used to be, first speaking completely frankly, I used to be a lot more entertaining to watch than I am now. But I used to also be a lot more erratic and lose more. So, so what I did is like, I just try to separate it as much as possible. Like I like to be a funny guy. I love, making people laugh and stuff, but on the court, in the match itself, like I probably will stay usually pretty level headed. Like sometimes I'll make some comments to the crowd or something, like,
right.
Like if he hits a good shot, I'll just say, it's like, I guess it's time for me to go take a nap or something. I don't know. Something like that, It's just little things, but I won't, be a full blown just personality like I am kind of off the court.
Yeah, I got to imagine for some people, that's probably a difficult transition to take, is when, like how you described before, used to be quote unquote more entertaining on the court, but would lose their matches. But kind of what comes with entertainment, I mean, winning obviously gives you a lot of hype and fame and stuff, but the, being entertaining kind of is what makes you viral and kind of gives you some more exposure. Right. So I can imagine for some athletes, it's a bit of a tougher, tug of war there between playing simple and winning more, whereas playing entertaining and not winning as much.
Yeah. I mean, I had my time as an entertainer, and, my priorities were different back then, like, especially in juniors. I had a lot of chances I think personally, I had a lot of chances to do well at Grand Slams, and I messed it up because of the personality that I was on the court. I mean, I still got to like 27 in the world or something, but the what ifs are endless, honestly. If I had the same mindset that I do now, where I think that this is better anyway, that I got it out of my system, in the juniors. And now that there's, it's your job, basically, it's a professional,
Right.
It's professional, you need to take it a little bit more seriously and just think about what are your goals. Like, how much is like, and I can't even use Guile as an example anymore because now he's playing professional tennis,
Yeah.
But like Guile back in like, I don't know, 2004, 2005, how much money was he making compared to Federer?
Right.
Like they both have, I firmly believe that they have very similar levels of talent, but Federer's, his focus is winning. At the end of the day, the guy, the champion takes home the most prize money. That's,
Yeah. His whole mindset throughout that whole Australian Open, I know it didn't end the way he wanted it to, but the amount of comebacks that he had, I think it was it Millman against Millman in the earlier rounds, and then Sandgren in the match right after, where, he had his back against the wall, and just the mentality of him to be able to kind of stay grounded and keep that vision going forward of winning the match and to come back in both those matches. That's what I think is the one true thing that separates the best of the best from those that just can't quite win that Grand Slam yet, because, on any given day, I think a lot of the tennis players, they have the physical capabilities to win a match.
Oh yeah.
It's when things start going downwards and their mentality starts to go downwards to a certain extent is where I think the separation occurs.
And yeah, that's exactly. I think that's what sets apart the higher level players from the lower level players. And honestly, that's something it's very difficult to master. Mm-hmm. Even if you're aware of it, it's very difficult for you to master. So that's the reason why it's so, like, it makes such a big difference.
Yeah. When we were talking about you kind of being a bit of the class clown, quote unquote, kind of reminded me of something I just heard recently. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast yesterday, and he had Rashad Evans on, who used to be the light heavyweight champion for UFC.
Oh, really?
And he would describe that like kind of the same. He'd be a little bit goofy at the beginning of the match. So what he would do is when he would walk into the ring, he would like twist his nipples, like really, really like you notice he was twisting his nipples, like he made it very apparent. And his mindset was like, I'm going to do something goofy right at the beginning so that whatever I do afterwards won't be more embarrassing than that. And that kind of just helped him relax and not be nervous for the match. So that's kind of something that, I wanted to try out myself on the tennis court, but I'm trying to realize or trying to figure out what is something goofy I could do beginning of a match that, however much I mess up afterwards won't be as embarrassing as that.
Okay. Yeah. No, that certainly is interesting. I haven't tried that before, so I can't really speak to that. But
no, right. Yeah.
Interesting strategy.
Definitely not going to be twisting my nipples on the tennis court, but something else. Yeah.
I have a somewhat unconventional view on shame, and that is that I think that it's a more of a social construct than anything else. So, whereas, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that, like, it is what it is. Like, humans will be humans, and we all do some embarrassing stuff. Like,
right.
And I like, if you own it, nobody's gonna laugh at you. Like, even if they do laugh at you, laugh with them. It's life. These things happen. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. There's literally nothing to be ashamed of ever. I think, unless obviously if you're doing some really heinous stuff, then which you probably shouldn't be doing in the first place. Then.
Right. Yeah. There's a reason why. Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like that term, how you said it is a social construct. Sorry. Yeah. It reminds me of, not too long ago, I started to try to pick up French again as a language and learn it and become bilingual. And when I was researching, how to become bilingual in France, best ways to learn French and so on and so forth, what a lot of articles and people said is, you see children, they become bilingual so easily because they just try speaking the language, right? They have no shame in messing up the words and they just learn naturally. Whereas adults, we've probably gone through years and years of, in society of being, laughed at for messing up, ridiculed for messing up and stuff like that, where we're not willing to take that, extra step and try a new language, even though we might mess up on it.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. I remember when I was learning Spanish. I was learning Spanish back in like 2014 or something. I was a teenager back then, and I would just go around, like, because I travel around a lot in Argentina and Costa Rica. There were a lot of junior tournaments down there back then, and I would just go around and try to talk to people from there in Spanish. And they did laugh. Like, don't get me wrong, they did laugh a lot. I remember I played doubles with a guy from Mexico, and he refused to speak to me in Spanish for the entire term, and he would speak to me in English, and I'd respond to him in Spanish.
Right.
That was hilarious, but eventually I became fluent, and I think that the reason why was just because I did not care. Like, it doesn't matter how much you laugh at me. Like, give me a couple months and I'll be speaking it like just as good as you are, Yeah,
exactly. I really like how you put that. I think that's going to be something that I try and take to the court itself, because I think the biggest part of my game that's the weakness is I tend to be too tentative with my shots, because I feel like I'm going to overhit the shots and I don't want to, mess up, right? Whether it's attached to the point or whether it's attached to people thinking I'm not good at tennis for overhitting a shot, I tend to underhit my shots, and that obviously doesn't end up well for any. So I think that's something that I'm going to try and do more often going forward, is just having that same mindset of that shame is a social construct and not to worry what other people think, and just hit the shot and commit to it. Hit it as hard as I can when it's appropriate, obviously. And just whatever the result is the result.
Exactly. And I don't know if this will help you think of it in a better context, but think of it this: if you underhit it and you overhit it, the result is pretty much the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
there's nothing to lose by going for it. You know, it's like I don't know, if you're down break point and you're hitting a second serve, and you know that if you hit the second serve softer than 100 miles an hour, you are definitely going to lose the point.
Right.
So, I mean, this is an example. Obviously, this isn't the case for anything, but I'm just saying, if that were the case, where like if you hit the ball under 100 miles an hour, you definitely lose the point. You will go for it, and because it doesn't matter either way. If you hit it hard and miss it, you lose. If you hit it soft and make it, you still lose. So you might as well go for it, because you have a chance of making it in.
Yeah, I think it was Djokovic that had the quote where he said that he looks at his second serve as another chance at the first serve. And I think it comes exactly with that mindset of, if you're going to if you're going to hit the ball, you might as well go for it, because if it's too soft, like you mentioned, the result of you hitting it too tentatively or overhitting it are exactly the same. You might as well overhit it so you can, not only get your mindset right about overhitting, about what it means to hit a ball hard, but it just, of course, helps with your timing and the physical sense of tennis as well. And tennis is such a mental and physical combination of athletics that I think that it'll be a perfect exercise for up and coming tennis players to do, is just, overhit the ball rather than underhit it.
Definitely.
Listen, man, I know you got kind of a busy schedule between, school, tennis, and piano. So I really appreciate you taking some time tonight to chat. For those that kind of want to check you out on social media, what are your social media handles?
Well, I have Instagram. My social media handle is kind of weird. It's Alafia, AIRLAFIA. And my Twitter is just my name, Alafia Ayeni.